David, President Trump surprised me over the course of the past day.
How so?
Because I didn't think he'd know who Harry Kane was. But not only does he know who he is, he praised him as a great soccer player on Truth Social. And then in the Oval Office, he revealed that he's played golf with him.
Do we have any evidence of him doing that?
Well, I quickly looked it up. AI provided me with no evidence. The internet has no records of the two of them having played golf. But I did learn that Harry Kane is an extremely good golfer. We know Donald Trump is too. So perhaps at some point in the past, their two paths have coincided.
And he does like to be seen to hang out with people of greatness. And if that's his description of Harry Kane, that would explain perhaps why he wants us to at least think that.
He is certainly great. Kane, that is. It's Mark here.
And David.
And we're both in Washington, D.C., where the clear-up is underway after the weekend birthday party.
Yes, flypasts, fireworks, and a showdown between the president and a storm, threatening his big event marking 250 years since American independence.
Yeah, we will get into all of that, plus massive World Cup controversy. President Trump tells us he didn't know what a red card was as he brushes off his decision to intervene in the suspension of a US player.
Yes, Donald Trump is now at the centre of the biggest controversy of the tournament. Until now, the World Cup has been a success story, Mark, for the United States. Millions of fans arriving from around the world, packed stadiums, different cultures mixing, Americans embracing soccer. They've often been accused of not fully understanding the beautiful game.
Well, I'm not sure the president does fully understand it. He certainly was up for admitting, as I said, that he didn't know what a red card was, but he found out and then was disgusted at the decision that was made in that match against Bosnia and Herzegovina. We'll come to all that in a moment. But look, you're right. I agree with you. The World Cup does so far appear to have been a remarkable success. There was all that controversy, wasn't there, around ticket pricing, transport pricing, the price of beer, $18 or $19 apparently up in Boston at the beginning of the tournament for one pint, and it's not even a pint because they don't quite do pints here. Anyway, there was this vibe at the beginning that maybe this wouldn't be the World Cup that everyone remembered as a great tournament. But, you know, as it got going, I think as James predicted would happen a few weeks ago, the football kind of took over, didn't it? And it was all about the football, all very exciting, until Donald Trump stuck his oar in.
Exactly. The tournament seemed to be generating the sort of headlines FIFA and the White House had been hoping for. But over the weekend, it emerged that Donald Trump had picked up the phone to his old pal, Johnny. And suddenly one of the biggest stories at this World Cup isn't a goal, a result, or even VAR. It's the President of the United States helping to overturn the suspension of America's star striker, Folarin Balogun. FIFA's decision to allow him to play against Belgium has sparked accusations of political interference and controversy all over the world.
Yeah, his old pal Gianni Infantino, of course, the president of FIFA. Two presidents on the phone to each other, and a few days later, a red card suspension gets overturned. What on earth is going on there? One of my favourite parts of this story was the deep layered irony to the fact that Sepp Blatter, the former FIFA president, he was on X, on Twitter over the course of the past day, criticising FIFA, the organisation he once ran, for political interference and for corruption. Him, Sepp Blatter, the guy who was fired from FIFA for exactly that.
If you've got Sepp Blatter questioning your ethics, then I think you've got a problem.
And the layered irony of that is that it was, in fact, an American-led federal investigation that led to the downfall of Sepp Blatter for corruption. Now America, the federal government, led by one Donald Trump, at the heart of this new controversy.
Now, Mark, you've been speaking to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who's following all of this.
Yeah, he has been following every twist and turn of this tournament with such extraordinary enthusiasm if you've been watching him on Sky News on the TV channel, and I wanted to speak to him to get his sense of all of this. Tell me first of all where you are. Are you still in Mexico City?
Yeah, Mexico City, heading to Miami. Now it's been a month crisscrossing North America at this World Cup.
You are living your best life. I'm very, very envious. How was last night? Amazing?
It was one of those incredible moments. Just the Azteca Stadium, that passionate and fiercely loyal Mexican crowd, desperate for their team to win. And England, they'd usually crumble on those occasions, but somehow shown the resolve to beat them on their own turf and producing one of the famous English wins overseas.
Truly, truly it was. I was watching at home. But look, I want to talk to you about Trump. I think it would have been more surprising had Donald Trump not inserted himself in such a controversial way into his own World Cup. He has, of course he has, and it's causing huge controversy, isn't it? Tell us what you think about this red card reversal.
Well, I was surprised he kept so quiet so far during this World Cup. Obviously, he's not been to a single match so far. I remember during the Paris Olympics, he was complaining about the depiction of the Last Supper in the opening ceremony. So we thought he's going to be commenting every day on Truth Social. But it's taken until this moment to rescue the US national team to get their star striker back in contention. And we know when someone gets a red card, well, it's an automatic suspension. And people were thinking, are they going to find a way? Is Trump going to intervene? Surely not. And he's done it, but also wanting to claim the credit too and exposing FIFA.
Yeah, exactly. He's saying the quiet stuff out loud.
All I did, I asked for a review because I didn't think it was a foul. And, again, I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other and got entangled.
Let's rewind a bit. For those people who are not tuned into the World Cup, just explain what happened, and then I'll explain how Trump inserted himself into the whole thing.
Well, it's the round of 32 match for the US against Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Folarin Balogun scored the opening goal. He also scored in the opening game. I was there in Los Angeles when they had a sensational win over Paraguay. So really integral to this team. In fact, he was also eligible to play for England, having been born in New York but grown up in London. But then, in the second half against Bosnia-Herzegovina, he was sent off for a challenge. VAR meant it was being microanalyzed. Everyone's sweating on whether or not the decision will stand. It would stand. He's sent off, and that means he'd missed the game against Belgium. And that's where the White House and US Soccer got involved and started to delve into the regulations to see if there was any way possible there could be a legal challenge, which to many of us on the outside thought, well, there's no way.
First of all, it emerged over the weekend that President Trump had called Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president. But it has now emerged that, in fact, there was a concerted effort, as you suggested, at various levels in the White House to see what they could do. We know that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick attended the game in person, the game in question, and was sitting next to FIFA President Gianni Infantino. He immediately started to work out, to make calls to see what could happen. We know, too, that the FIFA White House task force head, Andrew Giuliani, who is, by the way, the son of the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, once the lawyer to President Trump, he got involved as well. That kicked off several days of strategic discussions about how the federal government here in the US could somehow help the US soccer team to get this decision overturned. And they did, didn't they? It ended up with a phone call between the two presidents, the FIFA president and the American president, and the decision was overturned.
But it was the moment that Gianni Infantino received the call from Donald Trump. He technically should have said, look, I know you're concerned, but there's nothing I can do. It would be involving me politically because you can't interfere, because governments can't get involved in football decisions, and then passed it on. Because just last week, Nepal got suspended from world football for government interference. It happens so often around the world. Various FAs, often in Asia and Africa, get suspended for this. But here we have government interference being allowed. And, we've been seeing this over time as well in terms of this close Gianni Infantino, Donald Trump alliance. When Infantino was in the Oval Office last year, and Trump was sort of talking about, should we remove World Cup matches from certain cities because they're not safe? And Infantino was just sort of nodding along and becoming involved in something very political, given the fact Trump was targeting Democrat-run cities.
Gianni Infantino, or Gianni as Trump always calls him, has really got very close to Donald Trump over many, many months now, to the extent that he's earned himself the nickname Sycophantino, because he has been pretty sycophantic. These two have grown closer and closer. We have been struck here in the Washington Bureau the number of times that we've bumped into Infantino, literally in one case down in Miami, at events that on the face of it have absolutely nothing to do with football. He was at a Saudi business forum in Miami at some point last year. He's in and out of the Oval Office the whole time. These two men have become very close indeed. And of course now, with a moment like this, it all makes it look pretty grubby, doesn't it?
Yes, and it was just last week when Trump was talking about claiming not to know about his crypto profits. Well, it was a few months ago that Infantino turned up at an event in Florida and was starting to promote the potential launch of a crypto coin from FIFA. And this was an event run with the Witkoff and Trump kids. And there he was directly involved talking about the benefits of this. No sense of any sort of policy or plan in place from FIFA getting involved in crypto. And then the next day, actually, he was at the White House for the Gaza event when he was pictured wearing a Trump hat.
Yeah, exactly. And who can forget the FIFA Peace Prize, the inaugural Peace Prize that FIFA awarded to, guess who? Donald Trump. Rob, just briefly, what are the mechanics of this? Because there is, as I understand it, something in the FIFA code or whatever you call it called Article 27, which is what they have sort of initiated here, which has suspended the disciplinary sanction against the player.
Yes, they've applied this in this case. Now, they did last year as well, because we were talking about whether or not there'd be interference from the White House to get Cristiano Ronaldo to play at this World Cup, because he was sent off at the end of World Cup qualifying last October, so he should have missed the start of the group stage. But they did then suspend 2 games of his ban. Now, then they said it was because of Ronaldo's good conduct over the years. So they gave a reason. Yeah. But with this, there's been absolutely no reason at all why Balogun should have the suspension lifted. And we've had, I think, 11 other players sent off at this World Cup who've had to serve bans.
Yeah, and by the way, guess where Ronaldo was just a few days before that FIFA decision was made? He was in the Oval Office with one Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And if we actually wind back to the start of this World Cup, Infantino was claiming to be powerless and said, just told everyone to chill and relax, when the referee, Omar Artan, was banned from entering the United States. He said he couldn't get involved. It was all up to the US government and he'd have to miss the World Cup as a result. So almost saying, look, there's nothing we can do, yet here getting deeply involved in the Balogun decision.
So two final questions, Rob, before I let you catch your flight. First of all, what difference will this make to the US squad in the game tonight?
Well, it will give a boost to the team, having him available. The bigger question is, what happens to US soccer? Technically, and I've asked FIFA, well, are they going to investigate US soccer for government interference? Is Infantino himself going to be investigated? You've got UEFA, which is the European governing body, which is angry, which says that FIFA has crossed a line with this decision. So will we see FA start to demand an ethics investigation? Is that going to be a big consequence of all this? Just last year, in fact, Infantino was late for his own annual FIFA Congress in Paraguay. Where was he? He was with Trump on his golf tour, and at the time, UEFA went public. Their president, Alexander Shefrin, endorsing the statement, which said that Infantino was pursuing his personal political interest. That was cutting. And actually, as we just finished recording, Gianni Infantino has issued a comment. So I'm going to call it up as we're speaking here.
How exciting. Breaking news on the podcast.
Here we go. Gianni Infantino says, I have seen the public comments regarding the decision, and he goes on to talk about the fundamental principles of FIFA's governance. The judicial bodies are independent. And then he says, I regularly discuss matters related to the FIFA World Cup with the President of the United States, and on this matter, I did. And he talks about the phone calls. He says he explained the ongoing legal process involving independent judicial bodies, and he said, that is how FIFA system works, and it's a principle that I will always uphold. I will respect those decisions, and he will always follow the rule of law. And he said that's what protects the integrity of our competitions and the credibility of FIFA at all times. So he's standing up for himself now. It's taken about a day.
Yeah. It's worth saying that the disciplinary committee and the appeals committee, as I understand it, Infantino doesn't sit on either of those. It's composed of a chairperson, a deputy chairperson, additional members, and it's they that make these decisions, not the president of FIFA. Nevertheless, the fact that this phone call took place and then a decision was made to suspend the suspension is, should we say it doesn't pass the sniff test, does it, Rob?
No, this is one of the most extraordinary moments at a World Cup. I've seen many sort of scandals over the years. There in 2015 when the raids happened on FIFA officials in Zurich, when money was thrown over Sepp Blatter, even at FIFA HQ. This has absolutely put Gianni Infantino in the spotlight in a way that has raised questions about his own status there. But he's got a huge power base, largely because he makes money from the World Cup and it's distributed around the world, and that's how he gets elected. In fact, he brought this up when I asked him a question at the start of the World Cup, saying it's nothing to do with the money. Well, I hadn't actually asked about the money going to be connected with votes in any way.
Rob, we'll let you catch your plane to Miami. Enjoy the rest of the World Cup. Thanks a lot for joining Trump 100.
Great to join the pod.
Rob Harris there. And David, you heard him question whether US soccer will actually be investigated for political interference. Trump, of course, saying that he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't ask Infantino for anything to be changed. He merely called him up. But listen to this. Did you see Ted Cruz, also in the Oval Office today, talking about the incident? Have a listen.
And on behalf of all Americans, thank you for getting rid of that ridiculous red card.
So there you go, the Texas Senator Ted Cruz saying the quiet stuff out loud, perhaps. And I thought Trump looked a little awkward standing next to Cruz as he said those words. So, David, this weekend was the big moment America has been building up to for, 250 years. It is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And quite a weekend it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, a very busy one. Did you get to enjoy it yourself, Mark?
Well, a little bit more than you, I think, probably, because I wasn't fully working. You know, the strange thing about this is that we expected a while ago that this would be a really full-on weekend, didn't we? Where we would all be working. Actually, I also was somewhat concerned that something untoward might happen. I've been here for a few years now, and I can't remember a July 4th without something terrible happening. But this one passed without any great incident, did it?
It did, but it was memorable for a very different reason. The weather got in the way. It was dangerously hot, up to 41 degrees Celsius at one point. And then came the threat of thunderstorms. They kept delaying the opening of the venue for the fireworks. But people who had come to DC from every corner of America queued in those unbearable temperatures, I have to say, for hours.
Yeah, so you were down on the Mall, which, as we talked about, I think, last week, has been taken over by the Great American State Fair. The crowds were beginning to emerge, and then the thunder started, didn't it?
Yeah, they finally opened the gates to the fireworks venue, which was really between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, for anyone who's familiar with Washington, D.C. Just as the hundreds of flyovers we had over the city over the weekend reached their culmination. But as those jets and bombers flew overhead, this storm moved in.
Yeah.
And they had to evacuate the people who'd been queuing for hours and just been allowed through the gates. So we had this really weird juxtaposition of the US military showing off its strength overhead, but nature calling the shots on the ground.
Yeah, and you know, of the many quirks of America, there are a few. One of them, which always baffles me, is just how worked up they get in the United States about thunder and lightning. Now, the first thing to say is that, yes, storms here in America are a little bit more powerful and can be really quite dangerous. But, and this always, I find this extraordinary, whenever there is a storm, I think it's within sort of 7 or 8 miles of a venue, if the warning comes in that there is lightning within a radius of a certain number of miles, evacuations have to take place.
Yeah, and I've been subject to what they call ground stops at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., more than anywhere else in the world.
I think the reason for these evacuations is actually, it's about liability apart from anything else. organizations are worried they're going to get sued if someone gets struck by lightning. And so they try and evacuate people off their premises. So last year I was at a kids' football game, 20 or so different football pitches, and this massive area outside DC. Lightning strikes within a certain number of miles, and so we were all told to evacuate. Where to? No one quite knew, just off the premises that belonged to this organization that ran the football tournaments. And I think the same was the case on the Mall on Saturday, because the warning came in, thunder and lightning, everyone should evacuate. And, there were National Guard, there were Secret Service, there were regular police, everyone just shouting at the hundreds of thousands of people who had turned up on the Mall, evacuate. And I was among them. They said, get out of here, you got to go somewhere else. But they never told us where. It was complete chaos.
Yeah, the evacuation order led to a totally predictable standoff between Trump's base and the police, the Secret Service and the National Guard, as you say. The irony of that. But this is what happens when you've spent a long time telling people that previous administrations have tried to curtail their lives. When you have to take action to keep them safe, they don't really like it.
Yeah.
They began to chant USA, USA. And it all became a bit of a metaphor for the evening mark. Neither the crowd nor Donald Trump had any intention of letting the weather spoil the party. And I couldn't help reflect upon the fact that, you remember, his inauguration had to be moved indoors because it was too cold.
Yeah.
His big 250 party almost cancelled because it was too hot. Do you think the weather gods are passing judgment?
Maybe. But he was not backing down. On Truth Social, he was busy. He was busy tapping out messages saying, "Don't go anywhere. The show will go on," and it did. Just a little later. And the problem, certainly for my kids, who were desperate to see the fireworks, which was billed, and indeed was, when it eventually happened, as the biggest fireworks display ever. The fireworks were not going to happen until after Trump spoke, and Trump was delayed, which meant he didn't speak till, what was it, about 11:30 at night, which meant the fireworks didn't begin until, I think it was gone midnight.
Yeah, he said it had to happen on the 4th, but it actually happened on the 5th. In his post, he said, "I'll be there no matter what." But the what usually turns out to be a good thing. It's Saturday night. Let's have some fun, in capitals, in capital letters, even if we are out late tonight. And then he did get to the venue and posted again, "I'm here."
I said, there's no way if we have to speak in front of one person at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be here. There's no way we can be deterred.
And that's all very much part of Trump's political brand. The idea that obstacles, whatever they are, legal, political, or in this case, the weather, are not going to stop him doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, and it did lead many to come to the conclusion that this wasn't a birthday party just for America. It was very much a Trump-shaped celebration.
Oh, absolutely. His whole family was there on stage with him. And at least at the beginning, it started out quite patriotic. The military, NASA astronauts, a celebration of American achievement, but then we had the handbrake turn to where we knew it would go, political. He attacked communism, and he used part of the speech to push his Save America Act, the legislation that will require proof of citizenship and voter ID in federal elections.
America is back, and we want to keep America great. And we will do so by approving the Save America Act, which means all voters must show voter ID.
Yeah, so I was listening. By this stage, we'd given up on, we were going to go to a friend's roof to watch the fireworks, but it all got so late that the kids were asleep. While we were driving around, I was listening to him do his speech, and it did sound very much like a campaign rally, didn't it? Communism, the new buzzword.
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. On the ground, a campaign rally, the chanting, the merchandise, the crowds. We should also note, Mark, that the weather wasn't the only thing to cast a cloud over America's 250th birthday. At the very start of the day, several hundred masked men had marched on this city. They were carrying American flags, some of them upside down, usually a signal of distress. The Confederate flag, and they were chanting slogans used by the far right white supremacist group Patriot Front. But they had long gone before the fireworks, before all of this was happening on the Mall.
Yeah, I have to say I was a little envious of those people up in New York, because it looked pretty spectacular up there. There were tall ships in the harbour, in Manhattan Harbour, and then at night fireworks there too. And I did see the Brooklyn Bridge caught fire at one stage.
Yeah, it didn't all go to plan in New York. The bridge caught fire during the fireworks display. Thankfully, they were able to extinguish it fairly promptly. New York had hosted a spectacular naval review of US and Allied vessels and about 50 tall ships from around the world. And Mark, just to show there are no bad feelings, 250 years after the revolution, the Red Arrows crossed the Atlantic to paint that famous skyline red, white and blue. Wing Commander John Bond told us how it all looked from up in the clouds.
9 jets in the fly past and a photo chase. Hopefully we'll get some incredible views. It was a fantastic occasion to be part of. Seeing so many aeroplanes on my screen, it was quite a sight to behold. And I look forward to seeing the pictures. Hope everyone enjoyed it from the ground, and happy 4th to our American friends.
There we go. Only the British could celebrate their own defeat by sending the military.
With a wing commander called John Bond. James' cousin, perhaps?
David, I loved your conversation with Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan on Saturday.
Yeah, fascinating to talk to the New York Times journalists who've written that revealing insight into Trump's second term. It was fascinating to hear just how much access they've had to this administration.
Yeah, it's a really, really good book and a very good listen as well. And if you're thinking, hang on a minute, I didn't get this, I didn't see this, that's because you haven't signed up.
Yes, to get full access to that interview, you'll have to join the Sky News Insider Club, where you'll get ad-free listening and extra content, not just for Trump 100, but from our sister podcasts, Electoral Dysfunction and Stuff Matters.
All part of the bundle. What are you waiting for? Sign up now and enjoy. You can find all the terms, conditions, and the links in the episode description.
Yeah, we'll be back on Thursday with our regular episode, where we'll discuss how President Trump fared at the NATO conference.
Bye-bye.
See you then.